Y'all ready for this?
Time's up. Let's do this.
We're in for a wild night.
Welcome everybody to episode 127 of Born to be Wild, a Wild exclusive Hearthstone podcast where we have fun hanging out with friends talking about the Wild format of Hearthstone and spotlighting members of the Wild community. I'm your host, as always, Nate Wolf. It is great to be here for not too much longer from the Portland, Oregon area. I've got about 2 weeks left here, and then we are headed down south to sunny Southern California, so my time is short. But I'm not going anywhere.
The end is coming.
Nate's got the gold fever.
Yeah, I knew it. But it is a beautiful fall Friday evening here. And, I've got the senioritis super bad. Like, what do you do the last 2 weeks of work? Like after you put in your notice, right? I'm trying really hard. I'm trying so hard to like be present. Not doing super great at it, but I'm trying. Anyways, I'm excited to be back joining everybody tonight, and here with three of my favorite people because we are doing a lore episode tonight, which is very fun. But before we jump into that, let me say hello to my friends here. Hydra, welcome back. How are you tonight?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Back in front of the camera and the microphone. I was just finishing doing that at work today. We had one of our quarterly all hands meetings. This is introducing it to the fourth quarter, and apparently HR has decided that I speak at this thing every time now.
I will buy you golden packs if you put on the voice mod and do your work presentation in auto-tune.
I was considering it so hard this time because I was thinking, I actually thought of that, of all the things that I could have done. Yeah,
You're
maybe.
like, hello everybody.
Welcome to the news. The news is so good.
You probably get a raise.
The quarterly profits are so good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. But yeah, so, and it's great because I know that there are, like, you can look on Microsoft Teams and there's usually between 100 and 200 people on the call when we do the all hands. And you kind of get a little nervous, but I guess this podcast thing sort of helps with that.
It's helped me a lot, actually. Yeah. Yeah,
everyone at work's like, you did so good. How'd you do so good? I'm like, I don't know, because I talk with my friends about Hearthstone every single Friday. It sort of helps because they just say you don't sound nervous. And it's like, well, I mean, we just do this every single Friday. So it's not that big of a deal. I just have to avoid making Hearthstone references when I'm talking about geotechnical stuff.
You're starting the meeting and you're like, time's up, let's do this.
Oh my gosh.
Just say like,
I could do that. I actually type jobs done a lot in our Teams chat, like all the time.
as long as you don't start like trying to explain things in Hearthstone terms, like, okay, so if we can just got quarterly reports in, I think we can really hit legend this year or something like that.
But yeah, no, I'm doing great, and I'm happy to be here. It's always great when we have Goliath on and I get to learn about all the fun stuff that I play with. So it's gonna be sweet. Sheep, how about you?
Hello. I also exist.
Sorry, I was trying really hard to not say that's what she said.
She also exists. Yeah. Like it's wild here. It's actually getting like cool. It was like in the 40s today. It like the leaves are actually changing. Like what?
That's hot.
What is going on?
Oh wait, Fahrenheit. I forgot.
40 Fahrenheit. Yes. Very different from Celsius.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Super different. Yeah, it's so wild. Like what is going on? Oh my gosh! I wore a hoodie today. It was great. Loving it. Absolutely loving it. And
so is this your
Born to
first
be Wild today?
Not yet.
Is this your first fall in the new state of Colorado?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been, different places during the fall before, but this is my first like living here during it. So yeah,
Nice,
excitement abounds.
The weather isn't like ridiculously hot all the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm going back to, I think, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's a
good-
big adjustment. It's a good one.
Good times.
It's a great one.
I get to follow in your footsteps. I'm asking moving advice now because it's been a while for me, and 17 hours in a car with 2 cats. I can't wait.
That's more than 2.
It's exactly 2.
Oh dear. Well, that's I don't know. It's fun times for everybody. Lots of change and yeah. Goliath, how are you? Welcome back, man.
Chain.
Doing pretty good overall. Coming at you guys from Cascade, Iowa. And just funny is I've actually just been buying a lot of fruit like from California because it's funny because like this is the season like around here they're harvesting like the corn and the soybeans and all that stuff and things are kind of going down. You don't think the fresh fruit, but apparently over in California where they grow things like pomegranates and plums and stuff, this is like the big season for all that. And so I have personally been really excited that I can buy pomegranates in the store again. I've just kind of developed some strange fascination with them
Hey, they're
some
good.
reason.
I
Yeah,
like
I
them.
mean, yeah.
And their work. They are work. You're burning calories while taking it apart.
Yes.
You look like
And,
a bloody
uh,
mess when
Mixed
you're
cube
done
of
too.
fruit.
And if you eat enough of them, then you stay down in the underworld forever. So,
It's great.
A great taste. It tastes
Persephone.
great together.
but yes, it's been getting colder for me. Actually, just last night I had my first like freeze warning pop up on my phone and stuff, and I'm in a hoodie right now and everything for those of you listening audio. But yeah, no, this is always something that I look forward to every time set comes out, and occasionally between when sets comes out because we still have an Old God series to complete actually.
You know what? You're right. Now that I think about it.
But yeah, no, I always look forward to getting to come on here and get the Loremaster on and get on my inner storytelling dwarf.
Is finishing the Old God series kind of like tournament mode?
I guess so. You could say that, I guess.
The difference is we've actually had like one or sometimes 2 lore episodes a month, whereas tournament mode, it's not like there were tangential tournament mode things coming out on the reg too.
We'll show them how
Shots
it's
fired.
done. We'll do it. We'll finish.
Yeah, I believe.
We'll get
So-
it. Yeah, we'll do it soon.
But yeah, today is a fun one. I think this is the episode, I think, where this is the first time that Hearthstone has released a set with characters that are so recent to content they just added to the lore within the past year or so. Generally, they tend to go back to some of the stuff that's at least a few years old, but here they decided to jump right in and do some of the biggest, heads up for everybody. We're going cosmic storytelling again. We're going to have to start before time had a name and all of that stuff again. But
Sweet.
all of that can wait. We have some other business we need to take care of first, right, Nate?
Briefly.
Absolutely. So, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. Let me briefly explain how this show works. We record this podcast live every Friday evening here on twitch.tv/born-to-be-wild-hs. That's the Twitch channel URL. The video version of this podcast is then posted to YouTube shortly thereafter. Of course, this is a podcast. Audio versions are also distributed to all the podcast apps. So, however you are watching, listening, or absorbing via osmosis this podcast today, thank you. Yes, you.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Big shout out to the folks who are joining us live on Twitch. Really appreciate you all hanging out here. And again, I want to recommend the video version, especially when we do one of these lore episodes, because we will have a lot of visuals on the screen. So if you're one of the audio listeners, I hope you enjoy the stories. It should be a lot of fun. But if you want to see the pictures from Hearthstone, see the pictures from World of Warcraft to kind of follow along, Definitely recommend watching this on YouTube. But yeah, before we get into the main topic of the show, I did want to say a big thank you to Shokunin, who is the executive producer of our show, and also to our patrons, including joining us in chat over here, Aramorn. Thank you so much for your support and for hanging out with us. It means the world. If you are interested in supporting the show, there's a few things that you can do, like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, make comments on the podcast, leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, or your podcast platform of choice. Helps people find us. If you are interested in having some emotes, we have some cool ones on Twitch. You can get some for free just by following. There are others that you can get by subscribing. That is free if you have Amazon Prime. And finally, we do have some merch that is available on our website. A couple pictures here of the Schmoopy family wearing some Born to Be Wild merch that they sent us over, which is really fun. And there are links to that stuff on our website, which is borntobewildhs.com. And then finally, if you're interested in interacting with any of us or you want to learn more about all this stuff, just check out our website, borntobewildhs.com. There's a link there to our Discord. It's an online community. It's free to join. We have a lot of fun hanging out, chatting with people. We share deck lists, we share real life stuff, we share achievements, and again, my favorite is the funny username channel. My two favorites of the past week, they must have been friends, because these two lovely gentlemen, and I say gentlemen because I think a female would be too dignified to name themselves. I take big dumps was one, and Poo Man Doodoo was the other one. So if you're listening, I take big dumps and Poo Man Doodoo. Thank you for entertaining us. If you want to see more funny usernames, check out our Discord channel. Links on the website.
I've been saving quite a few of those funny usernames to post a big dump of them myself. So look forward to that in the coming days.
I can't wait to see your sheep dump.
Just imagine if those people ever went to a championship with announcers and everything.
Oh yeah, here's one sheep posted this past week. Wishing Poo. So in the in today's Hearthstone match, world champions, we have Wishing Poo versus Poo Man Doodoo.
Versus.
I gotta say it in the dwarf voice.
Oh god. Oh,
I take big dumps versus Sylvanas.
I have no time for games.
See, we're adults here over in Born to Be.
I generally hate crude humor, but this is hilarious in an ironic sense.
Right. So a very, very brief little bit of news before we get into the lore. So the ladder reset, today is the 7th of October. The ladder reset last weekend, and I love it when the first of the month falls on the weekend, because that means that like I have a Monday through Friday type of job, and the first was on a Saturday, and so I got to hit legend over the weekend because instead of packing boxes, I was playing Hearthstone like a bad husband, and I hit legend using so I came in at rank 32, which is awesome. Very happy with that. I had a 65% win rate overall, and I only played one deck to legend. Was Reno, Renethal, Shadow Priest, and so I'm gonna go ahead and take credit for those deck lists, but I stole it from Schmoopy Daddy, who stole it from Lorthos, but we all changed a couple of cards. So Schmoopy Daddy added Najak because I think he was missing a card or something like that, and then I pulled out School Teacher and added Skulking Geist because I kept seeing these due process like mill druids, and so I put in Geist, and it was so funny. Of course, after I put in Geist, I see like none of them, but my final boss was against a Renethal Kingsbane, and I played Geist, and like he nuked 9 cards.
Yowza.
It was all the poisons were gone, and their dagger, their Kingsbane was a 3/3, and it was like, okay. So I think I secured my 11x. I'll put the deck list in chat if anyone wants it. It's on Twitter. They posted it on Hearthstone Top Decks, which is always fun, and I don't know that I can really take that much credit for the list. I got the idea to swap in Geist from Memnarch, who was also seeing a lot of the druids. So it kills Jade Idol if you're wondering. That's how they kind of go infinite there. So anyways, had a good time. And yeah, aside from that, just kind of hanging out, trying to wrap up stuff at work and do a lot of packing and stuff. But here we are. So this background you see behind me is going to be deconstructed over the next week or so probably, but I will still be here.
I was picturing you while you're packing getting like a headband with like this thing where you can suspend your phone in front of it. So like I am packing, honey, and you're like, hold on, swipe.
Shh. Don't give away my secrets. Yeah.
I didn't know you've been playing Secret Mage. I thought you were playing Renathal Priest.
You know what? I tried, and so I think it's interesting. I've seen a couple of like meta hot takes, and Secret Mage is turning out to not necessarily be the tyrant that everyone thought it would be. I will say what people are predicting and what I've seen a handful of, tier 1 is like the Beast Hunter or Copper Hunter, whatever you want to call it, which that deck is gnarly. It's a little bit big brain for me, although I think it's getting easier. The new cards, the Shadehound is incredible in that deck. Reno Priest, they're saying is tier 1. I will say from experience, the games are super long. And there's a lot of decision points. And so if you want to climb with it, you just got to be ready for like long, grindy games. The difference with this and like your old Reno Priest is that the old Reno Priest with Polkelt, and it had a definitive game plan where you were looking to play Raza and Anduin and just machine gun out and kill your opponent. And this one is more disruption and like trying not to die and trying to steal their cards and making your opponent miserable, which is what Priest is very good at. But
just so ironic.
Tradition.
But
Priest is all about healing and stuff. You're supposed to make people feel better, not draw out the misery.
It's funny. So the games, yeah, I don't love this version. Like I prefer the old one, but like, you know, Schmoopy's saying it's kind of a tempo deck, and it really is. It just plays differently, but it's enjoyable. There's a decent like random factor because you're playing Lazul to take cards, you're playing Theotar, and I saw like Blue Train had this meme, finding Theo instead of finding Nemo. And, but like we did some co-op early on watching NHL play this deck, and that was kind of funny because that's the game plan sometimes, is like you're just trying to disrupt your opponent, but it works. And so the deck is strong if you have the patience for it. I really was thinking that Secret Mage would be stronger contender because of the new cards, particularly Objection, which is a really good card, but I don't know. I've seen a few people try the 40 card version, which is like, not quite there. I've seen people try the 30 card version. Like it's not quite there, I think. It looks fun. I mean, then again, I've seen a couple of people hit Legend with it. So it's probably your like tier 3 if I had to guess, but I don't know. Maybe bottom of tier 2. It
depends on the sort of people that you're matched up against. Like when I did it, given my track record of not being the type of person who hits Legend at the start of every month, like some of people around here, it probably doesn't put me against quite as many, high contenders that can instantly nuke it.
It's a little
different. I did have some horrible losses when I played. I agree.
I will say having the 11x kind of carries because you get the bonus stars all the way through, and so like I never want to lose it again. I really had to push. I think it was last month because my win rate, like I started out the month with a terrible win rate, and I just had to really climb. But I think I'll be okay for now. Probably gonna have to play a little bit less because of moving. So I'll play casually in my downtime, but it's kind of nice to get it out. Speaking of Legend, I know someone else that got Legend.
Yeah, so I was playing some Standard to prep for THL, like you do. And I was practicing some Aggro Druid. It was not created by me. It was created by the Innkeeper. This was an autocomplete deck.
Oh my god. You had Legend with autocomplete Druid?
Yes, I did. I did seed it with, a couple of cards so that it would, make an aggro druid. But yeah, I just let the Innkeeper do the rest, and then I played it.
Hey, dwarves are pretty smart,
So
impressive.
No, you're just showing off at this point, Sheep.
What can I do?
No, that's great. That's amazing.
So hit standard legend yesterday with autocomplete aggro druid with
should
only
actually call it
common and
that.
rares. I should. So only commons and rares. So it was really easy to get fully golden there. Just already kind of had it by the way that I open up packs and that kind of stuff. So that was pretty cool there. Been playing a lot of first Quest Hunter, and then Secret Mage in Wild. And I agree. I think that so Quest Hunter, definitely like tier 4-ish. It's good, but it's not great. It's a lot of fun. So, kind of my jam, kind of my speed. But then Secret Mage, I think you're right, Nate. It's probably about tier 3. Like it's solid. Like it's got a very coherent archetype and a very kind of solid game plan.
If you can
But
play
also it
Cabal
can get
Lackey
beat
on
down.
one with a secret, I feel like the tempo, if you can play on curve, it's great. But when you don't draw the cards that you want, then it's not so great. I don't.
Yeah, I made my own. I hadn't really looked at what other people were doing, just kind of seeing what I ran into, and the list that I kind of came across seems to be really consistent, really fun, and I'll keep on jamming that and kind of iterating, like you do. But it's a lot of fun. Have not quite hit legend in Wild yet, but I'll definitely get there. It's only the 7th.
Oh yeah. All right. Anything else that anybody wants to share before we jump into our lore segment here? Hydra, you've been
I
playing
want to
Hearthstone at
share.
all?
I've been playing way too much Mercenaries, is what I've been doing.
I have two, and I really am having a lot of fun with it.
It's been my go-to. Well, first of all, at the beginning of the month, I played on Asia in Wild, and I just did the Diamond 10 climb. And then after that, I don't know what it is. I guess I took a long enough break that Mercenaries has been fun for me, especially since you don't have to get the Mysterious Stranger. Right, it just
so much
goes
better.
into the next until you do 18 tasks, and then you have to wait till tomorrow. Sad face. But other than that, which I mean, come on, 18 tasks for 4 characters in a day is a lot anyway. You can do that easily on a Saturday or whatever, but on a weeknight, that's a little hard to do. But I've been just grinding it, and I've been opening so many packs. Every single day I'm opening packs because of task 16, 17, and 18 all provide packs, right?
Yeah.
For free.
So every couple days I'm opening 3 packs per character. And so I'm like, I'm not going to spend money on this. I've got so many packs to open. So it's
Blizzard will hear you.
So I've been having an absolute blast. Though on NA, I was thinking of, and tell me if you guys have played this, but I was looking at Taylor's list for Mechathune because she was saying that she's destroying some of the main meta competitors with it. So I like Mechathune. Mechathune's fun. I've done really well with Mechathune in the past. So
nice. I haven't played it in a while, so
I'm thinking of trying out her list. I didn't bring it to the show, but I mean,
never even got the card still, but I ran into it a couple of times. I had completely forgotten it was a thing, and I was used to only seeing a Warlock Mechathune with the Cataclysm, and I can't remember the specifics, but I remember that some people were putting in classes that I'd never seen it in before. So.
Yeah, this is Warlock, but it's just different than what I'm used to because I only played it pre was it Blood Bloom that got the big nerf? That's when I used to play it, and it ran like Hemet and Reno and all that, and I just loved it at the time. But it does not look like that anymore, and so I want to put some time in to learn the new current version, even though it's kind of like off meta. But if what she says is true, and it's killing a bunch of the main decks in the meta, I am down for that.
Meta breaker.
nice.
Yep.
I found it here. I just added it to the show notes and dropped it in chat if anybody's interested. So it looks super fun.
Oh, for sure.
You would be proud of me. I have not bought the golden packs. I've been avoiding them.
Good for you,
boy.
Nate. Save money.
Yeah, for the U-Haul.
For the U-Haul.
For the U-Haul.
You need it right now.
I did get Burger Uther because it's Burger
Burger
Uther.
Uther. Yeah.
I can't fault you for that one.
I did too. He's so perfect.
Just think if they did like a Burger Varian or Anduin or something, they could have had a Burger King. Just saying.
Blizzard, please.
Missed opportunities.
Oh, that's
Whoops.
oh dear.
Oh, and there's Dairy Queen opportunities.
Oh my gosh. The crossovers.
Oh yeah. So Sylvanas is the Banshee Queen. We're going to be talking about her in the lore part today. So have like her and she already has connections with like, the undead frozen throats. Like she has, the ice, make like an ice cream Sylvanas, and she's the Dairy Queen.
They are going to have to lend Blizzard to Hunter for that, though.
Oh my goodness. All right, friends. Well, let us move into some lore here then. I did something a little bit different this time around. We typically have this like right-hand little side of the screen, which is a little bit small for trying to jam a bunch of pictures in. And so have a little bit of a different layout here. So hopefully this lends itself a little bit better to the art aspect of things. Again, for those of you listening, I hope you enjoy. I would encourage you to try to watch, just because it then you can put the stories to the pictures, kind of follow along. So before we get into, well, I should say, to kick off the lore segment, I think we're going to do a little brief recap of where we left off last time with the Shadowlands. And so let me move over to this segment here and bring up our map, and I will pass the mic over to Goliath.
All
Previously on Born to be Wild.
Well, I think I'm going to actually pull out a little tactic that I do to open up. So, fun fact about me, I actually do a small little bit of teaching for some kids like every other Wednesday night. But when you have that long in between, you really have to start with, okay, who remembers anything that we talked about last time? Because it's been a couple weeks.
And this is
So
where
I'm
we
gonna
all
put
kind of
that
like
on-
look down at our feet and like,
All right, who remembers anything we talked about with the Shadowland?
it's where you go when you
Hydra,
die.
are you raising your hand?
Stuart! And then there were the blue people. And they ushered to the different places in the stuff. And there were the different like levels and the sandstones and the... Yeah.
What Sheep said.
Wow, you guys aren't too dissimilar to my class, honestly. There's always like the enthusiastic kid or the one who just tries to piggyback off of them. I was that enthusiastic kid when I was little, and everyone wanted to piggyback off me. But yes, so the basics of the Shadowlands. So, as a quick refresher, the Shadowlands is the realm of the infinite afterlives. So any living soul that dies anywhere in the cosmos of the Warcraft/Hearthstone universe goes to the Shadowlands, where they are first they enter the city of Oribos, which is right at the center of it, and are judged by a being called the Arbiter to decide which is the best afterlife suited for them, or that they are suited for. And then there are, as we said, infinite afterlives, but there are 4 ones that are kind of like the core powers of the world. And the one that Sheep was talking about was Bastion, which is where you have Stewart, the steward, the cute little owl people, and the winged blue people known as Kyrians, who ferry the souls of the dead to the Shadowlands. You have Maldraxxus, which is the constantly war-torn afterlife, which is intended for people who literally live for battle and like they're not happy unless they're fighting and killing something. And that's meant to be sort of like the armies to defend the Shadowlands from any other cosmic forces. You have Ardenweald, which is the nature area. This is the place that is tuned to the cycle of life and death. It has a partnership with the Emerald Dream, and it's basically where spirits like wild gods or Loa or maybe very powerful druids or whatnot will go and stay for a while before they are reborn along with the seasons and such. And then we have Revendreth, the main setting of the core expansion that we had, of which this is the mini set, which is ruled over by Sire Denathrius and the Court of Harvesters, and is basically meant as a way for if there's a soul that is particularly wicked, that it's not suited for any of the other afterlives, it's sent there for an attempt at some rehabilitation before it is judged to either stay in the Revendreth as a Venthyr and basically just continue the cycle where it helps purify souls, gets sent back to Oribos to be chosen for a new afterlife, or if it is exceedingly unrepentant after everything, goes down into the Maw, which is our core setting for our little talk tonight as we go into Maw and Order. And so let me just ask you guys then, from just looking at the cards in the set, what sort of vibes do you get about the Maw? Courtroom puns aside, of which Nate provided some wonderful information from the legal side of things. Just when you look at the sort of things in the art, what sort of vibes do you get about the kind of place the Maw is?
Yeah, dude, it's like a dungeon or like prison, right? It's it seems very. There's a bunch of guards that all look like Sauron from Lord of the Rings and the jailer, and like that is not the place you want to go. That's like maximum security prison, right?
The guy who looks like he's from Fairy Tale that we were talking about, Nate, the blue fire skeleton.
Oh gosh, yeah, kind of, yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, like if you I didn't pull it. Let me pull it up here, but like like Sauron from Lord of the Rings, it looks very similar to the jailer, right? With all the armor with the spikes and everything. It's pretty cool and pretty scary, and seems like an unpleasant place to be.
Oh, it is that by design. It is basically the hell of the Shadowlands. It is the place for only the worst, most wicked, most unrepentant souls to be tortured for all of eternity. And it just so happens that the guy who's in charge of it is also its biggest prisoner. The jailer is the title that he is known by, but his name is Zoval. And he, along with the leaders of those other Shadowland areas that we mentioned, so then you have the Archon, who rules a bastion. You have the Sire Denathrius, who is in Revendreth. You have the Winter Queen, who rules over Ardenweald, and you have the Primus, who rules over Maldraxxus. And they, along with Zovald, were created by this mysterious race of creator beings known as the First Ones, who are apparently like even more creaty of everything cosmic than the Titans were, or something. They were just kind of introduced as a mysterious concept in the lore with the Shadowlands expansion, and information about them has been very purposely withheld to keep them as mysterious as possible. I think partially because they're trying to, from a story perspective, fill the niche that the Titans and Old Gods used to have, where you barely knew anything about them. But now we've learned a lot of cool things about them, and it's a great story, but that sense of pure mystery and wonder is kind of gone there. So they're trying to go, but there's something that's even more powerful and created them. And it's the cycle that you get into when you're writing a never-ending story for a game. I can't really fault them too much for that.
I have a headcanon for them.
Yes.
They were just the first ones that got there, so they said first. And then they named themselves that,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Cosmic law, that's the ultimate thing.
Yeah, just first.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some headcanon.
And so Zoval and Friends is we're essentially known as either the Eternal Ones or the Pantheon of Death occasionally. The Eternal Ones is more kind of the official moniker they go by, but they are essentially the ones who rule over everything that has to do with where a soul goes after death. And Zoval, as the flavor text of his legendary card so helpfully points out, once served the role of Arbiter, which means that he was the one who would be sitting on like the big judgment throne and would see every single soul go by, which, you know, to him the life is, you know, in the blink of an eye there. And he ran into a little problem that a lot of Warcraft's villains, both small scale and cosmic, seem to run into, where they get the idea that because there are differences among people, because not everything is the same or united together, that it is fundamentally flawed, and therefore they must break everything in order to remake it as a unified force under their control. Because as Arbiter, Zoval had some mysterious vision, and we have no idea what was in it, but he thought he saw some sort of impending disaster that would doom the entire cosmos. And he's like, a divided cosmos cannot withstand what is to come, without ever saying what he thought was going to come in the first place. Because Blizzard decided that they wanted to have that as a big cliffhanger so that we come back later to learn that part of the story.
So can I ask a quick question though? Like, was it supposed to be a like a spoiler or whatever that the Arbiter, like he was the Arbiter?
That was not revealed until like the second year of the expansion, actually.
Spoiler!
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you who haven't played yet, okay. I found this image online of the jailer with the Arbiter like superimposed, and I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, so fun fact is that the jailer has this big hole in his chest. That's actually
ask what that was for.
That's so the Arbiter has this basically a large orb that is kind of like contains the anima and the sigil. So essentially what happened is that the one like principal rule that the Eternal Ones could not follow is that they could not do, that they had to follow, is that they could not return to the place of their creation, which was a place called Zereth Mortis. It was basically the workshop that the first ones used to create them, and that generates afterlives. And basically none of them could return to it, but Zoval thought, the cosmos is fundamentally flawed. I shall gather all of the sigils that the Eternal Ones have. It's basically kind of like a sign of power. And with it, I will be able to open the gate to Zereth Mortis and completely remake the world into one that is under my entire control. And then everyone will be happy and safe, he's thought. Because that's what megalomaniacs always seem to think. As I said, this was a problem with Sargeras, the demonic lord of the Burning Legion. His desire to purge all life from the cosmos came from the idea that the universe is fundamentally flawed. Look at these old gods here. We just have to erase everything and it'll start fresh again. Garrosh Hellscream on the smaller scale was like, only the orcs should be here. And I'm going to go and get this whole horde of orcs that will conquer all of Azeroth and unite it, and then we can be strong when the Burning Legion attacks. Well, actually, that was Rathian's idea, and it was a whole other thing. But it's something you can either interpret as a intriguing motif and reoccurring theme about a fundamental flaw that many villains have, or you can consider it lazy writing. I will let you decide why so many of these villains have the same motivations and thought processes about all these. But
You decide.
case in point, this was Zobal's way of thinking, but he was stopped and basically put on trial and sentenced by his fellow Eternal Ones. Frankly, he was so powerful that they had to wage this whole war uniting against him in order to be able to take him down, and then basically chained him down and decided that he needed to be stripped of his power, that he had betrayed and forfeited his office as Arbiter, and that he would be cast down into the Maw. And so they ripped out his anima. So anima is basically like the energy that powers the Shadowlands. It is the essence of a soul. And it's what, like, the more anima that you have in the Shadowlands, the more powerful you are. And they took that sigil, his sign of his power, and his anima, and they used those to construct a new Arbiter. So the Arbiter essentially has like that orb and stuff that fits exactly into the hole in Zoval's chest, because it's all things that were actually taken from him and just kind of constructed to make a better Arbiter, which is kind of a bit more robot, but it's also not. It's kind of confusing. But at any rate, in order to restrain him, the Primus, who's that guy who rules Maldraxxus, he literally had to create an entire new kind of magic in order to restrain him, which was called the Language of Domination. And basically, it's written in these runes and such. It works in such a way that it restrains a person and controls them by interfering with their sense of self, by kind of like preventing you from realizing who you are and interfering with your will being able to control what you do.
Sounds scary.
Oh, it's very scary, honestly. It's scary because not only, it restrained Zoval for a time if he was cast in the Maw, and he's heavily chained down, and those runes are literally branded into his flesh. But after eons, he managed to break his chain. And after eons more, he learned to take the magic that bound him and turn it into his own weapon. He became the master of domination and plotted long-ranging plan where he still thinks that he is in the right and that, he was unfairly cast down and like his power usurped. And he's like, I'll get them. I'll show them all. Like, I'll get you, Eternal Ones, and your little dog too, or something like that.
So he became master of his domain.
Yes. Yes. And set about the plan of essentially trying to get as many souls into the Maw as possible in order to turn into his army, because the more souls that are in the Maw, the more powerful he becomes, which is where we're going to get where he's looking for a few allies. Well, not allies, more like people he can directly control so far, because it's kind of the nature of domination. So here's the really cool thing here. You guys know Frostmourne, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lich King's helmet, the Helm of Domination, they were crafted by the jailer.
Whoa.
And given... Oh, it gets even better. They were extracted from the minds of the Primus, who had created domination in the first place, because the Primus suspected that something was amiss in the Maw. He went down to check it, but the jailer caught him and chained him up and stole all his memories, including how to make really powerful weapons. And so by doing that, he crafted Frostmourne and the Helm of Domination. Gave them, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because I was looking at the jailer's staff or weapon that he's holding, and it has a lot of similarities to Frostmourne.
Yeah.
It looks like the same design, but not the same weapon. Earlier, I was trying to compare the two. I'm like, is he holding Frostborn? No, he's not. He's holding something else, but it was created by him, so that's why it looks the same.
That and
Yeah.
all the runes that are like all over, like if you look at the picture of the Primus, those runes look just like the ones that are on Frostmourne, right?
Yeah, it's that exact type of magic and such. It's the idea of like a language of the cosmos that is so powerful that to speak or write it is to alter reality, which is a fun thing that fantasy does sometime. Like it's the idea if you've ever played Skyrim where they have like the dragon shouts. That's the idea in that game world where like it's a language that's so powerful it literally turns into fire breath or something. And this is a similar concept, except it's a lot scarier because it's all about mind control, basically. And so you remember how in the previous episode when we talked about Sire Denathrius, do you remember us talking about the Nathrezim, the Dreadlords?
Yes. Yes.
What do you guys remember?
So they were, oh my gosh, now that you asked, I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I remember in particular that the Dreadlords like really had a big part in the corruption of Arthas into the Lich King, for sure. And what's his name? Mal'Ganis in particular is one of them, and communicating with Kel'Thuzad. And I mean, if like, gosh, it wasn't too long ago that I had gone through and played Warcraft 3, and you see like Arthas just go off the deep end and, you know, whispering in his ear, he's got, you know, the Dreadlords and Kel'Thuzad and the whole transformation into the Lich King. But the about the Dread or the Dreadlords in general, I don't remember a ton of specific.
The Dreadlords, or the Nathrezim, as their proper racial name, were created by Sire Denathrius, Nathrezim, as the ultimate spies and infiltrators and saboteurs. And
they could change their shape, huh? Right, that's what we talked about.
Yes, that's something. That's very much something they can do. We'll get back to that a bit more towards the end, actually, because it's relevant for one of our legendary cards in the set. But essentially, so we remember that Denathrius was kind of secretly always working with the jailer. And so the whole idea was that he kind of faked the Dreadlords getting exiled out of the Shadowlands as a way that they could become his agents in the physical universe. And the way that most of them did that was by joining the Burning Legion and kind of manipulating events and so on, so that they could get access to influence some people who might be able to push events along a bit. For example, the Lich King was actually created on the orders of the Demon Lord Kil'jaeden, who, fun fact, used to be one of Ellen's best friends. That's a whole other story there that we can talk about someday. But basically, there had been this orc named Ner'zhul, who was a shaman, and he had been, basically he died while he was trying to do some work with the Legion invading Azeroth and all that. And Kil'jaeden was really upset about that. And so he decided that he was going to kill and torture Ner'zhul's soul into the first Lich King, imprisoning and binding it to the Helm of Domination and Frostmourne, which Kil'jaeden did not know were from the jailer. They were provided by the Dreadlords, like, hey boss, look at what we made / found. This totally is only serving Demon Burning Legion interests. Totally no other cosmic force that wants to push events in their direction. Basically, the Lich King was created actively by the demons with the intention of creating the undead scourge that would weaken Azeroth and prepare them for a demon invasion. But from the jailer's perspective, it was going to be a tool, an agent through which he could directly use the power of death to influence the world. However, Ner'zhul as the Lich King turned out to be a bit too weak-willed for the jailer's taste, not really an ideal tool. kind of like always, like the whispering in the back of the head of anyone who has the Helm of Domination on is taking on that role of the Lich King. Basically, the Lich King decided that he needed a champion because actively he wanted to not be a slave to the Burning Legion anymore, because they had sent all those dreadlords to be his jailers. And so like Mal'Ganis and Balnazar and all of those characters, that's where they come in. And so with the lore as we have it now, you have all of these different players who are trying to influence events. You got the Legion that's trying to use the Lich King just as a tool, an army in order to weaken things for their own invasion. You have the jailer who is trying to whisper in the back of the mind of the Lich King in order to do like death shall rule everything. And you have the Lich King himself who just wants to break free and rule everything on his own, which no matter who wins in that three-way struggle, it's bad news for your average Joe. But that's kind of the battle of wills going on there. This is where Arthas comes in, who had been kind of selected by the Lich King as the perfect champion. If he could just corrupt this paladin and get him into a service, he would be the perfect weapon to break him free. And that exactly how that happened is a very involved story. That's the entirety of Warcraft 3 and the Throws and Throne expansion, and therefore we do not have time to talk about its entirety, much as I'd like to, but we would end up like the same length as your old set card reviews. Hydra,
10 hours later.
No, I changed my mind. It's all good. Thank you.
All right. And yes, so basically all you have to know here is that Kel'Thuzad is a major player here, where he is this necromancer who Arthas is hunting down and kills. And then through manipulations of dreadlords like Mal'Ganis, results in Arthas ending up going to try to chase him to the continent of Northrend, luring him to claim Frostmourne, become a Death Knight, get corrupted, all of that stuff. He becomes a servant of the Lich King. One of his first jobs assigned by the Lich King is that he needs to take the remains of Kel'Thuzad, the guy that he killed, and resurrect him into a Lich so that we can get him back and active serving the Lich King again. The only thing that has enough powerful magic to resurrect Kel'Thuzad into like the ultimate super powerful Lich form the Lich King wants him as is this place called the Sunwell, which is located in the Blood Elven city of Silvermoon. Well, actually, back then they were just called High Elf. And basically, Arthas is like, okay, time to go in and lay waste to that city, and we can use that Sunwell in order to resurrect Kel'Thuzad. And so they go invading, and they run into some fierce resistance from one particular elf. This elf is the Ranger General, a very prestigious position in the High Elven military, and her name is Sylvanas Windrunner.
Yep.
And this is the story of how she died and then got raised, and then later died a few more times, then kept getting raised. And she basically...
She got better.
Yes, but not really, no.
No.
He was such a thorn in the side of Arthas, harrowing him every step of the way, that when he finally got her, he's like, the last thing you deserve is the peace of death. I will make you suffer as much as I can because you annoyed me so much while I was... All I wanted to do was invade your kingdom, lay waste to your entire civilization, and use your most sacred font of magic to resurrect an evil lich. Is that too much to ask? But no, you had to get in the way, said Arthas to Sylvanas.
Just one Pepsi, and I couldn't have it. Just one Pepsi.
All I wanted was a Pepsi.
Exactly. Hydra knows what's up.
Yep.
So she was killed, and then what's interesting is that so for Frostmourne, it shatters the souls of those who it kills. A part of the soul was frozen in time. Basically, Sylvanas as she was at the moment she died. That's kind of stored in Frostmourne / sent to the jailer. The other part of her soul was yanked out of the Shadowlands in excruciating pain and raised up into a banshee. Now, what's important is that at this point, she is just a pure spirit, banshee, but the wailing scream and all of that stuff. And her body is just tossed aside. She later reclaims her body. So that's why she has physical form. Essentially, as we see her for World of Warcraft and in Hearthstone, she is basically a ghost who is possessing her own body. Technically, she has the power to leave it and possess other people if she wants, which is the logic behind like the mind control death rattles and everything, and also powers that she has if you play her in Heroes of the Storm. But she doesn't like leaving her body vulnerable. So she tends to just like to stay in it if she can. And honestly, I can't blame her. I'd probably feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I'd say that, let's see. Sorry, I almost lost track of it. Oh, yes. Sylvanas. So again, very long story. She does a lot of stuff, but the spark notes for our purposes is that eventually she manages to break free of Arthas / the Lich King's control after, ironically enough, Illidan Stormrage tries this long distance magic blast wave on the frozen throne that is causing a lot of collateral damage and is actually stopped by Tyrande and Malfurion. But he manages to crack the frozen throne enough that the Lich King's power starts leaking out, and that allows the control over all the undead to lessen, and so some of them start getting a free will. Sylvanas is one of them, and she's very much, okay, yeah, great to have free will again. Let's break free of control, and basically she ends up, after Arthas and Kel'Thuzad are kind of out of the picture for various reasons, mainly Arthas merging with the Lich King and becoming the new Lich King, and Kel'Thuzad just kind of going off on his own business with Naxxramas. And Sylvanas takes over as the ruler of the undead who now have their free will, and they call themselves the Forsaken.
She had no time for games.
Yeah, no. Honestly, out of a serious sense for need for self-preservation, she tried sending ambassadors to any of the larger factions, both the Alliance and the Horde. Unfortunately, the Alliance did not know that the undead who were approaching were free-willed individuals who were seeking to make a deal, and thought they were just more scourge that was coming to kill them. So
it's a trap.
Yeah. The Horde was more accepting, mainly because actually of our druid hero from the Barrens, Heimal Rune Totem. He was actually like, these guys deserve a chance. And he made the case to the Horde that they should be let in, and that's why the undead are a Horde race instead of just their own thing when you play World of Warcraft. Yeah, it's interesting that the Tauren of all people advocated for this. But they had a lot of compassion about it. And at this point, the Forsaken and Sylvanas are pretty sympathetic, honestly, because they're just trying to survive. They didn't ask for any of this. They've been put through horrible torture. And but unfortunately, in that sense for self-preservation, kind of starts to evolve into like a war against the living humans in the area as they keep trying to expand their territories and stuff. And slowly they become more and more of a overall villainous faction. Not to say every undead is evil by nature, but the process of being resurrected through necromancy tends to leave you numb to both your senses and to positive emotions. It is much harder to feel things like love and compassion when you have been resurrected in this way. And that's actually one of the reasons why the light is so damaging to undead, because it brings back the senses. The light is restorative by nature. And so if they're hit with the light, they can suddenly smell how rotten they are, and they can feel pain again, and like all those things that are. Yes,
light shall burn you.
Yes, exactly. And that's why it does, because it is an unnatural state that they are in, and yeah, that's what happens when you put those things together. But essentially, the Lich King eventually made his move to try to conquer Azeroth with the Scourge for himself. Arthas, as the Lich King, was another failure for the Jailer because he was a bit narrow-minded and very much pushy. He's like, nope, you're not controlling me. I'm going to rule things my way here. And he was just all about his military conquest and apparently didn't even tap into the full power of Frostmourne, which, considering the damage that he was able to do, says something about how powerful Frostmourne actually is. But eventually we get the whole expansion of Wrath of the Lich King, in which a lot of things happen, and that's all we can say about that for time. And but eventually the Lich King dies with this really cool scene of Tyrion Forgeling with the Ashbringer shattering Frostmourne, and all of the souls that were trapped inside take their vengeance on Arthas and undo him. And then he gets sent to the Maw through...
I love the flavor of the death rattle of Frostmourne for that.
Yeah.
Like the actual card.
Yeah.
Everything that it destroys pops out.
Exactly. Because you trap the souls and then they come out. And the thing is that Sylvanas
I like
hated
that.
Arthas. Sylvanas hated Arthas more than anything because he's the whole reason that she is, undead and stuff. And she really, really wanted to be the one to kill him, but she wasn't there. And so she kind of got depressed, like a bit unfulfilled about that. But she actually kind of went up to Icecrown, to the place where he had died, and felt that, I guess my purpose is fulfilled now. I guess I'll commit undead suicide. So she jumps off of the precipice of Icecrown to impale herself on Serenite spikes at the bottom, which Serenite is actually the blood of Yogg-Saron in a mineral form that Icecrown Citadel was constructed out of. And by impaling herself on those spikes, then she that's the thing that's strong enough to kill her, and she dies. And this is where she is going to meet the Jailer, and things are going to change for her. But before we get into that, I think it's time to have maybe a little intermission. We've got a song for everybody, as usual.
All right, yeah. Let me pull it up. I have not listened to it yet, so I'm very excited. I think everyone should be able to hear it. Play it here.
The soundboard is
I have no time for games.
Death rattle, control their mind. Now you scream, none shall survive. Ooh, see that girl, hear that scream, playing the Banshee Queen. Once a ranger of silver moon, you got killed by an undead goo. Plays again as a banshee, puppet on a string to love the Lich King. When you broke free, regain your will. You knew who you had to kill. Gathered up all the undead, now they follow you. That Lich King's going down. And now you have the crown. You are the Banshee Queen of the Forsaken. Your will is unshaken. Banshee Queen, hear the sound of that wailing scream. Oh yeah. You control Valkyrie flights, raising the dead to unlife. Ooh, see those fools, watch that scene, serving the Banshee Queen. Burning trees and breaking laws, sending souls down to the maw. Hanging out with the jailer and the mud infused, you're in the control. And when you get the soul, you are the Banshee Queen. No time for games, leaving your foes in flames. Banshee Queen, hear the sound of that wailing scream. Oh yeah. You control Valkyrie flights, raising the dead to unlife. Oh, see those ghouls, watch that scene, serving the Banshee Queen. Serving the Banshee Queen.
Glorious.
Very good.
You know,
I love it.
It made. I listened to it the other day when you first sent it. And I was like, wow, that's great. And then I just got to hear the whole story and then listen to it again. And it made so much more sense to me. And it was even better.
And we're going to explain a few more of the latter half parts of it still, too. But yeah, I actually had that one kicking in my head for a while in the sense of like, oh, Dancing Queen, Banshee Queen. I could probably make something out of that. And then they come out with this set, and I'm like, okay, I need to put this one to the top of the roster here because this is too good of a thematic opportunity to pass up.
Absolutely.
I still have one written for whenever we talk about Yogg Saron. That one is been waiting for a while, but again, waiting to spring them when they're fully and when it's an episode we're talking about the stuff is what I like to do. So yes. Does anyone have any questions about the story so far before we move on to where things start to get really spicy?
Not really, but how hardcore. She's like, well, I guess I'm done here. Let me just kill myself. And I mean, part of me thinks that it was like, oh, well, Arthas is...
Job's done.
Kind of.
Job's done.
Like, I almost thought that she wanted to go to the Shadowlands to, like, meet Arthas there to, like, get some more vengeance in the afterlife. But,
you can't even escape me in death.
Yeah, no, she was kind of like, I guess I don't really have much of a purpose now. May as well, try to get back to have that nice peaceful death that I was denied earlier. But it didn't work out that way. She was influenced by a few different things. One of them was that so there are these beings called the Valkyr that the Lich King had actually created, which have the ability to they're kind of like inspired by the Kyrian, but the reverse of them, because they pluck souls out of the Shadowlands and bring them back to the mortal world, which is kind of how it's one of the main ways that undead are raised. And about 9 of these Valkyr were working for the jailer, and they intercepted Sylvanas. And we're basically at first trying to convince her, no, you don't want to do this. And we're going to show you all these visions because look at all these people that you lead, the undead forsaken. I mean, all sorts of horrible things will happen to them if you're not there to lead them. And when she still died, then she ended up meeting the jailer, who gave her a bit of a manipulative story that he knew would kind of sway her to his will. So I'm actually going to share a couple of his lines here that we have as actually this is excerpts from a book that was written after Shadowlands came out as an expansion, with information that probably would have been nice for us to know beforehand, because we had no idea what Sylvanas' motivations were working with this guy for like the entirety that the game was running. But they cleared it for us in the long run. So basically, the jailer didn't tell her that his ultimate goal was to undo and remake all of reality to be under his domination for whatever reason he thought that was completely justified to do. He told Sylvanas that reality was fundamentally broken in that there was actually no such thing as free will. He convinced her, and he showed her like parts of the Shadowlands where things didn't seem quite just about where certain souls ended up, because of the idea that it was the outside circumstances of a person's life that had impacted them and turned them into the person that they were, rather than only their own decisions. And in Sylvanas' opinion, hello there, Nate Scott. In Sylvanas' opinion, this is like proof that, yeah, you know what? The whole universe, this is fundamentally broken. Like, whatever first ones created this or something, they are clearly, tyrants, and we should be able to seize and have completely free will. That was her goal. And the jailer presented himself to her as being a noble ruler who had been unrightfully disposed and whose power had been usurped and stolen from him. Like basically he pretended that he was Aragorn, the whole king in exile thing. Mm-hmm. I'll just read you a couple excerpts from the novel of things that he said to her. He said, "I am Zoval. Before I was jailer of this place, I reigned over the realms of death from the precipice of eternity itself. I stood as arbiter over every mortal soul whose brief flicker of life had sputtered out. In an instant, I knew the entirety of their existence. And time after time, do you know what I saw? Fragile beings left to the fickle whims of fate. Their worlds, their kin, whether they were wise or simple, hale or sickly, these things were forced upon them. From the moment they drew their first breath until they exhaled their last, the choice was never theirs. And when their lives ended, it was my duty to decide their souls' fate for all of eternity. From its conception to execution and throughout all that has been and is, the design is gravely, cruelly, and worst of all, inherently flawed. In many ways, Sylvanas, your story echoes my own. We were both betrayed and broken. I too was torn asunder, and I understand well what it is like to feel achingly, eternally incomplete." So you see, he's pulling that classic manipulation tactic of saying, "We're the same, you and I." Like,
Yeah.
Sylvanas, I am the one person who understands you.
Yeah.
Where have we heard this story
sound
before?
like a cult leader recruiting teenagers, you know?
My gosh.
Yeah. Gaslighting 101.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, no, it's just the same story, right? That we heard with Queen Azura and
N'Zoth, yeah.
N'Zoth and Sargeras and all of that stuff. And so,
and at first, Sylvanas,
how the turntables.
Once Sylvanas learned that he was the guy behind the Lich King, she at first was like, it was all your fault. But he's like, no. That was Arthas's problem there. I had nothing to do with that. I didn't order that. But here's another thing that he basically told her that she would need to strip away, like, as I said, being undead already makes it harder to have empathy and such. But he was basically telling her to actively disregard all of it in order to bring herself to do the cruel things that would be necessary. He said, "It is not Arthas you need to be free of. It is your own mortality. Our path will have no place for compassion, the regrets, the guilt of the living. It will have no place for their morality, because it, just like the machine of death, is at its heart flawed. And that flaw is believing that anything is fair."
How emo.
Right?
You took it right out of my mouth. That was the most emo thing I've heard in a long time.
And I've defeated Illidan I don't know how many times.
Yeah, he
Fair
said,
point.
"We will remake everything. Life, death, you will be my side at each step. Together we will show every soul that both their lives and the eternity that awaits them are prisons, and bring them true freedom." But this thing is, why he's telling all this to Sylvanas is he says to her that he has lots of slaves. Like, domination is his thing. But after all the Lich King failures so far, he realized that he needs someone who is his ally freely to serve as an agent in the world. Someone who will actually cooperate with him instead of resisting him. Yeah, it turns out that those people tend to make better help. Who would have guessed? Took him eons of existence, apparently. But so basically, Sylvanas is a little, I don't know about us, but he essentially is like, "Here's my card. When you change your mind, let me know." Like, not literally, but that's the gist. What happened was that she bonded with those 9 Valkyr. And in order to show that, so that no one of the Pantheon of Death would be able to detect that she was absent from the Maw, one of the Valkyr took her place. That Valkyr's name was Anhilda, and she is one of our warrior portraits from the rewards track. So that's her. So they all serve Sylvanas. And so that kind of explains a bit of her dialogue and comments, doesn't it?
Oh, how cool.
Oh, yeah.
She looks like she could kick my butt.
Oh, yes. They are very powerful beings.
They remind me of like Valkyrie, right? I'm sure that's where the name comes from.
Yes, exactly. In fact, it was later expanded upon in the lore. So there is literally a guy named Odin in the World of Warcraft. He's one of those Titan Forge that we've talked about a bit before, like the Raw card from the Mogu Cultist. That he's called a Titan Forge. And there's another one of those that was named Odin. And he actually created the very first Valkyr because he gained the ability to see into the Shadowlands, and he saw those Kyrian, and he's like, "That's a cool idea. I want to create an army that I think will help safeguard Azeroth, and so I'll just take the souls of the most powerful warriors to ever live and put them into these bodies I'm going to forge, and that'll be my thing." And then the Lich King saw that, and he's like, "That's a great idea. I'll copy the copier," and made his own Valkyr. Who
Stop copying me.
More evil.
Stop copying me.
This makes me want to play God of War again and fight the Valkyrie. Like, they're intense.
I finally played that this year because it was finally on PC, and I was not able to defeat a single Valkyrie.
They're hard. Yeah.
They are really, really hard. But yes, that's where that part comes in. And then time goes past, several expansions worth of Warcraft material, which again we shall not bother to talk about because it's not directly related. Although Sylvanas did do a lot of things like invading Gilneas and started this whole beef with Gen Greymane because she killed his son and a whole bunch of stuff like
Rude.
that. Yeah. Well, she was trying to kill Gen, but his son jumped in front of the poisoned arrow. You know, it's that self-sacrifice thing. But there's a particular enmity between the undead and the Worgen because of all of that. They are like arch enemies, which I think was just an excuse by Blizzard that you could have like zombies fighting werewolves constantly. Because it looks cool.
That's pretty cool. Now every time I play Even Hunter, I'm gonna have to use the Sylvanas skin though.
Yeah, then you're bringing them together. Yen doesn't like that. But so what happened then eventually was that the Burning Legion had another invasion of Azeroth. And this was the start of a series of events that the jailer had prophesied to Sylvanas as, when the time is right, this will be the sign. He said that the signs would be, a fiery darkness will return. You must step out of the shadows and lead. A blade will pierce the heart of the world, and you shall hold the blood from that wound and sense its power. And finally, you shall topple a king and shatter the sky itself. That's rather cryptic messaging, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it all came true because the Burning Legion was that fiery enemy that returned. And then when he said, you must step out of the shadows and lead, this is when Sylvanas became the war chief of the Horde. So the Horde went through several war chiefs because some of them were bad or retired or whatever. It went through leaders a lot faster than the Alliance did, honestly. But at the time, the current one was our buddy Vol'jin, one of those earliest priest legendaries. And he was the leader of the trolls. He was the war chief of the Horde for a while, but he was mortally wounded fighting against the demons. And while he was on his deathbed, Sylvanas came in and he said, "The Loa have spoken to me, and they say that you must step out of the shadows and lead. You must be watching." He says that is the very dying, gasping type of voice in cinematics and such. And it was true that Aloa had spoken to him and told him that. But it turned out that this particular Aloa was an ally of the jailer. And his name is Muzala, the original Loa of Death. Not Bwansamdi, who we have as our leader of Bwansamdi Zombies in the priest cards for Rastakhan's Rumble, which is the best name out of all the Rastakhan Rumble class teams, I'll add. You have like Rawl Sharks, Servalis Tigers. Like, yay, but when you have Bwansamdi Zombies, I mean, that sounds like a team.
Let's go zombies.
I just did that out of pure instinct.
We're all trained.
Yes. So Muzala is the original Loa of Death and is actually Bwansamdi's boss. Now Bwansamdi is, he's a trickster. He makes deals and stuff, but he overall has the interests of the trolls at heart. And actually safeguards them. Muzala is more of a soul consumer type of death god, and
he looks intense. That guy's huge.
Oh yes, he is. Anyone who is allied with the jailer is generally a pretty scary individual, to be perfectly honest. But yes, it actually gets to the point where Bwansamdi is busy trying to save souls of the trolls, and the jailer and Muzala don't like that, and so they have Sylvanas arranged to attempt to literally kill the Loa of Death Bwansamdi, which happens in a book, and they don't succeed. Bwansamdi is still fine, But yeah, that's how much of a nuisance he was to them at times, because he was actually being a nice death god overall. But Muzala is the one who arranged, basically manipulated Vol'jin into having Sylvanas take the throne of the Horde leadership as the war chief. And because he used those exact words, "You must step out of the shadows and lead," that was what got her like, oh, okay, yeah, that stuff the jailer said is coming true. I'm better take advantage of that card. And she basically sent one of the Valkyr to go deliver a message to jailer that said, okay, game on. And the first thing that the jailer had her do was to try to capture and control the queen of the Valkyr that Oda controlled. Her name is Aegir, and basically the idea is that, so she gets this magical soul-binding lantern from Helya, who is another death-related entity who rules this place called Helheim. So you may remember that there are some cards that have things like Sea Reaver or wounded. What's his name? The one that does damage to himself. Injured Cavaldir, I think, is the word. Yeah, the Cavaldir are basically these Viking-like undead who are controlled by this being called Helya, who also works for the jailer. Surprise, surprise.
Wait. The name is what now? Hell yeah?
Helya. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, like I said, it's more lifting from Norse mythology. She's basically like Hel, daughter of Loki and all that. Who, by the way, there is a Lokin who is based off of Loki, who we'll talk quite a bit about when we finally do our Yogg Saron story, actually.
That's low-key pretty clever.
So yeah, basically Sylvanas gets this magic lantern, and she is attempting to bind all of the Valkyr to her will so that they can be sent and corrupted, and further bolstering the forces of the Maw. However, again, Greymane kind of gets in the way of that because he tracks her down, and he has that big beef with Sylvanas, and he breaks the lantern, and as he's walking away, he's like, "You took away my son's future, and it looks like I just took away yours." And it would be very fitting if he put on sunglasses at that point and there was an explosion behind him, but that doesn't happen. It's a very badass line, though. Nice. So that plan doesn't quite work out. So the next thing that the jailer tells Sylvanas to do is basically to start a huge war and to cause as much death on Azeroth as possible so that they can get all of those souls sent down to the Maw, which will make them more powerful. Because here's the thing.
And she's just like, okay, why not?
Yeah, never. Yeah, no, like, she is dedicated to the cause. She is convinced that anything is worth the price of what she thinks will end all suffering forever. It's very much that whole people who think that the end justifies the means tend to end up with very questionable means and not so great of an end.
True. Very true.
Mm-hmm. And so her first thing in order to kickstart this war is to burn down the home of the Night Elves.
Rude.
Which is, I think, where they got the inspiration to have that arson accusation card. But we should also mention, before we get into that leg of the story, one of our other legendaries, Nathanos, who is Sylvanas' personal champion.
Hey. I am quite flattered.
Yes, unfortunately, this was not a character that was named after Nate, unless he's been in the game for a long time. Actually, he was originally just an undead hunter trainer, and then they decided to give him a more prominent role. He was actually in life before Sylvanas was killed and raised as a banshee. He was kind of her student, the one human who was ever inducted into the ranks of the High Elven Far Striders. That was the name of the elite archer group that Sylvanas was in charge of. And by the way, why she is considered a hunter portrait. She has the bow and arrow. She was essentially a master of the bow in life and continued to some extent with that in death. And there was a lot of talk and gossip that, frankly, Sylvanas kept saying that their relationship was strictly professional. Everyone's like, she's got a thing for the human. How scandalous, you know. And she may or may not have. It's kind of left up a bit in the air. There's definitely some tension there. But Nathanos ended up getting killed and raised by the Scourge. And Sylvanas was so eager to be able to have him back that rather than the normal case of Scourge and just kind of discovering their free will on their own after like Lich King power was drawn away from them, Sylvanas literally tore him out of the influence of the Lich King. That had never been done before. But she's like, nope, he is mine. And she was so into making sure that he was top, like had reason to be around, that she went through this whole ritual of giving him a more advanced, perfected undead body. So that's why he looks more like just a pale human with a dark beard and everything, instead of like,
like a ghoul.
like your typical Forsaken is doing, where they're listing their jaw and all that type of stuff.
Right.
Just occurred to me that if anybody opted to clip that, what I just did there, that'll be very strange looking out of context.
Flipping now.
I love it. Well, and so that makes sense then for the lore perspective for this. Well, why he is defending her.
Yeah, he is her champion. He is her yes man. And according to many in the Warcraft community, he is her simp. He is like, anything my lady commands, the Dark Lady can do no wrong. Yeah, look, they have an interesting relationship where they both frequently deny any sort of feelings, because like they're all about being emo and, you know, uncaring undead and all that stuff. But there's something there. They do kind of deep down still care for each other, devoted in that way. But yeah, that is Nathanos's deal. And he is actually there right with her when she burns down the tree. So essentially, her initial plan was just to kick off the war by killing Malfurion and holding the Niles under capture, and hope that they'll be, you know, really broken and depressed, and it'll, you know, be a good step to us getting this war going here. But when she saw like the defiance that there would be, even a dying night elf that she spoke to was still holding on to hope, and told her, "You can't kill hope." She's like, "Oh,
Watch
I
me."
can't, can I?"
Challenge accepted.
And she has them launch flaming catapults with like shaman fire elemental infused firebrands, set the entire magical world tree of Teldrassil that the Night Elves are living in on fire. Completely burns it down. Millions of Night Elves die here. The rest are refugees who are left homeless. And Tyrande ends up entering her own emo phase because of this, because she hates Sylvanas so much, she ends up embracing like the power of the dark side of the moon and becoming this thing called the Night Warrior, and that is also another story. A lot of these stories intersect, but basically, yeah, she does a lot. This is a major turning point. And one thing that we need to talk about, have a little flashback into the Shadowlands here, is remember how I said that generally like the souls go in front of the Arbiter and then they go to whichever afterlife is best suited for them. Well, that's not happening anymore, because those pesky little Nathrazim that we talked about a little while ago, while they were members of the Burning Legion, they arranged for the planet of Argus, which is the home planet of the Draenei, by the way, and also had a world soul. Do you guys remember what a world soul is? It's something very important
Yeah.
to Warcraft cosmology.
So it's like the baby Titans like sleeping in the
Exactly.
world, right? But it hasn't woken up yet because it doesn't have like the power. But it's like providing the power to the world essentially, right?
Gold star for Nate. That covers all the bases, honestly.
Bam, Azeroth. There you go.
Yeah, Azeroth has a world soul, and it turns out that Argus had a world soul as well. And through constant like corruption and torture, the Burning Legion turned the world soul of Argus into a respawn for demons, so that demons, unless they were killed in the Twisting Nether, would just have their soul like tracked through Argus, and then they would be reborn. And so it was serving as a tool for that. But as a corrupted, twisted world soul, when it was finally killed, and we do kill it as the final boss in the Legion expansion as a way of eliminating the Legion's power to be so endless, like you kill them and they keep coming back, that world soul went hurtling through the Shadowlands and smashed right into the Arbiter and rendered the Arbiter dormant. Because of that, there is no judging of souls. And every single soul is funneling straight to the Maw for reasons that I guess the Shadowlands are designed with a better safe than sorry. Don't let anyone who might deserve the Maw go anywhere else without being judged. I guess that the Shadowlands were not designed with an innocent until proven guilty mentality, unfortunately.
No.
But anyway, that's what's happening. And so the reason that the jailer wants Sylvanas to do so much death, causing so much death in this war, is because every person killed is another soul going to the Maw. Every soul into the Maw makes the jailer and Sylvanas stronger. And he gives her new death magic, Maw domination powers. So she can do like even crazier stuff than she could do beforehand.
all that killing, like she's trying to cure the anima drought.
Yeah.
Well, no, see, that's actually what's causing the anima drought, because the anima is generated in all the realms of the Shadowlands by new souls coming there. Because all those souls are going to the Maw, all the anima is going to the Maw. And
wow.
yeah, the drought is actually a part of this whole plan. And the jailer has his various agents in the other realms of the Shadowlands cause as much trouble as they can to prevent them from uniting against him and stopping him like they did that first time. And we as the players in Shadowlands are basically dealing with all those things and actually getting everybody united there. After the what became known as the Fourth War, and sometimes known as the Blood War, ended, basically there was this splinter faction within the Horde, led by Varrock Sarfang, our old warrior legendary buddy from Barons, who basically realized that the Horde is supposed to be about honor, and she is not doing anything honorable. She's committing war crimes here and there. Yeah, she can't sneeze without committing a war crime, it seems. And
it's pretty hard.
Yeah. So he raises a rebellion against Sylvanas and gains allies in Anduin and Thrall, and basically everybody who wants to see Sylvanas gone except her diehard loyalists, who are mainly Forsaken. In order to prevent too much bloodshed, rather than raising a full-scale war against Sylvanas' supporters, Sarfang just challenges her to a one-on-one fight, which in Orcish culture is known as a Makara, fight to the death for honor. And she does end up killing him because she goes like jailer-powered Super Saiyan and just has this whole blast of death magic at him and stuff. But
I challenge you to Makara!
Hey, there we go.
Exactly.
That's the Warcraft version of 1v1 me, bro.
Yeah, basically. But before she kills him, he manages to goad her so much that she basically, because she is a full-on nihilist at this point. She's the emo is like, nothing matters, nothing lasts, nothing points, and she just says like, the Horde is nothing, the Alliance is nothing. Just wait until I'll show you all that this is all pointless. And then she just abandons her position as before she even goes to do more direct work for the jailer. So she's not in charge of an entire political faction anymore. No, now she is a general of a cosmic faction that sends her to go to the latest Lich King, who is Bolvar Fordragon. He was entrusted with the Helm of Domination after Arthas was killed because without someone to control all of the undead that were still around, they would just cause a bunch of chaos. So Bolvar's job as the Lich King was actually to try to restrain and hold back all of that undead power, which the jailer didn't like that either. He's like, none of these Lich Kings work out. Every single one of them is defective somehow. And but Bolvar always heard that voice whispering in the back of his head, and he never knew how many of his actions might have been not his own ideas after all while he was the Lich King. But what Sylvanas does is she just goes right up to Icecrown, and with the superpowers the jailer gave her, yanks the Helm of Domination off of his head and breaks it in two. And when she does that, the sky above Icecrown's citadel cracks and is a direct portal to the Maw. And this is basically where like members of known as the Maw Sworn are like swooping down and like kidnapping people and bringing them to the Maw and everything, including some of Sylvanas' biggest opponents, Jaina, Bane, Thrall, and Anduin are all captured and held in the Tower of Torghast, the Tower of the Damned. And that's where a lot of the jail motifs that you guys mentioned before come in. It's literally the biggest prison for the worst of the worst in all of existence within the Warcraft cosmology. So yeah, it's like it's frequently said no one escapes the Maw because there's no way to get back out, except of course if you're a player character, because that's kind of a part of the plot there. And so one of the big things is that the jailer needs a weapon, like something kind of like the Lich King, but completely under his control, like complete puppet from to dominate, no will there whatsoever. And he and Sylvanas see the potential for that in Anduin, because they need the purest soul possible to corrupt into their ultimate dominated weapon. And Anduin is, as I said, he was captured, and he and Sylvanas have a bit of back and forth about stuff, trying to get into each other's heads. And she eventually decides, yeah, no, I'm going with this. And just like basically through crafting a new Mournblade, which is the type of sword that the Frostmourne is, where it has the runes on it and has the power of domination crafted by the jailer. Basically, they turn Anduin's sword, Charlemagne, which, by the way, used to be Varian's sword and is the one that he has in that Varian King of Stormwind, that one that splits in two. Basically, that sword is corrupted, and actually, the soul of Arthas is fused into it as the fuel for the dominating power. And Anduin has this armor that's put on him, covered in all the runes, and the jailer controls every single thing that he does and acts as like a powerful agent to be able to collect all those things that the jailer needs, those sigils, in order to get into Zereth Mortis and enact his final plan. This leads to a big raid in the game that is called the Sanctum of Domination, where we as players take on some of the jailer's most powerful forces in an attempt to stop him from getting the Arbiter's Sigil, his old power, and being able to break out of the Maw and enter Oribos. Sylvanas is the final boss of that, and we don't kill her, and she doesn't kill us, but she stalls the players long enough for the jailer to literally expand the borders of the Maw around Oribos and basically take the Arbiter's power and back into him. And then he gets this really cool upgrade with a much more interesting appearance, honestly, with a really cool suit of armor. And I believe we have an image of that, correct?
This one, yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of what he looked like at his fullness, where he's so we have this image of him with kind of a horned helmet. He's standing in front of the portal that he's created. That's the portal to Zareth Mortis. And it's at this point that he decides to spill the beans to Sylvanas. He's like, hey, so I know I told you that we were going to just kind of, give everybody free will and stuff, but I was actually planning on remaking the entire universe to serve me. So, yeah, you can still join if you want. And she's like, I will never serve. And try shooting an arrow at him. But of course, that does absolutely nothing. And,
valiant effort, though.
yes. And then what he does, actually, as sort of an ironic punishment for her, is he takes that fragment of her soul that was initially sliced off of Frostmourne and was frozen in time and restores that to her. So she has a full soul again, but they're two warring souls. Because there's the old version of her, who was the noble ranger general who only wanted to protect her people. And then there's the Banshee Queen, who has had her mind messed with and is a complete emo nihilist at this point, who has committed many, many unforgivable war crimes against all of reality at this point. And those two soul parts of her fight, and she's basically in a coma for quite a while until Uther, or I believe some of you guys like to say Bluther, who is a Kyrian and actually suffered a very similar fate. He had part of his soul stuck in Frostmourne, and he actually, for a period of time, was manipulated by the jailer into causing some rebellion problems in Bastion, because he was still wounded from Frostmourne, and like literally a wounded soul, and it was kind of, he wasn't thinking clearly. But eventually he was restored, and he realized that he could connect with Sylvanas, and it's like he kind of goes into her mind and convinces her that yes, no, that monster, that actually is you, and you need to be able to embrace and become whole, because only that way will you be able to wake up and tell us how we can stop the jailer. Because she has the insider info. At this point, she's switching sides. And actually, now she has blue eyes. They're not red anymore because she has her soul restored. That's how you can tell that she's a little more of a good guy at this point. And she plays a big role in helping for, actually, to get Anduin back. So he is able to eventually break free of the jailer's control. And once they do that, Arthas's soul is just kind of this teensy little shriveled up thing that's floating around. It's like it's literally been burned up, like he barely exists anymore. And Sylvanas kind of has a bit of a reality check. She's like, I spent years chasing you, hating you, and with every selfish act I became you. She finally realizes, wow, yeah, I was literally becoming that which I initially fought against. Like, finally clicks with her. And she kind of finally makes peace with it, and Arthas's soul just shrivels away out of existence and out of memory. And she's like, may everybody forget you. She literally says that. And yeah, so Arthas's soul never actually got judged. He was actually sent to the mall by Uther, who kind of grabbed him and threw him in there because, again, he wasn't thinking clearly. So he never actually was judged by the Arbiter. So we don't know what Arthas's fate maybe should have actually been. Maybe he should have had a second chance in the Shadowlands, but that was taken from him, and the jailer just burned him out of existence. Which is a pretty sad story, honestly. But yeah, eventually then the jailer is stopped as he's attempting to remake all reality. His whole thing with the construction of Icecrown Citadel is that it actually has this thing beneath it called the Forge of Souls that is meant to draw out Azeroth's world soul and use it to power like the Forge of Realities, which will of course allow him to remake reality. But he is stopped there, of course, because he is a raid boss, and Unless they ever make a raid that is literally impossible to beat, if you're a raid boss, it means your plan is going to fail, at least to some extent. I'm sure that some of these characters, I'm just imagining them self-aware, is like, hey guys, great news, I just got promoted to a raid boss. And then everyone else is like, ooh, you don't know what that means, do you? You think it's this big honor, but man, it means that you're not going to have really any victories in the long run here. Let's see. Yeah, and actually, as he is stripped away, as we see in our little picture here, that part where he just looks like he's a robot, that is like the core version of him that was initially like the skeleton he was constructed around in Zereth Mortis by the first ones. And like his entire essence is literally burned away. And like he is unmade in the most literal sense, where he's just those basic components. He's just a huge mannequin at that point. And no longer a threat. And that is the basic story of the jailer and Sylvanas and all of that trouble that they caused. Again, there are many more facets of the story, but we have spent a considerable amount of time already and have just a few other cards to talk about that didn't quite fit into it in the grand scheme of this story. So what are we talking about first, Nate?
So we have Maltranix here.
Yes, Prosecutor Maltranix. Now, Maltranix is an Athrazim, a bit more of the Reverend Dreth style ones, and doesn't really have much direct story, but she is notable for one thing, and that is that, as we said, Dreadlords and Athrazim can disguise themselves as anything. Like, they are the ultimate infiltrators. Most of the time, you will never know that the original person was missing to begin with, who is being replaced. So this character actually was an NPC that you buy things from for a very large part of the base game before this expansion came out. Like just a vendor, someone who repairs your gear and stuff. And or you can get some, cool items from. And then it turns out, oh, this was a Dreadlord spying on you all along. And doesn't really do much else, but is kind of notable for that purpose, honestly. Just this character who you thought was just an NPC that you're dealing with is actually a Prosecutor Maltranix. And because Nathrazim are very much about, like finding the darkest things about somebody, they played a big role in corrupting Arthas. That it kind of makes sense that one fits as the prosecutor in this particular role. What do we have next?
And these are just a couple of, I guess you would call denizens or whatever. So the Afterlife Attendant and Soul Seeker.
Yes. So these are just a few, and there's a fair amount of cards in Maw and Order that are kind of have various Mossworn in them. Mossworn are essentially basically suits of armor that are constructed and then infused with the twisted remains of the evil souls sent to the Maw. Of course, the problem with all the souls getting sent to the Maw was that the innocent souls were being sent there as well. That was the big problem. I have to get souls out of the Maw. In fact, Sylvanas's punishment after the jailer was defeated, because she still had to be held accountable for her crimes, she was given over to the judgment of Tyrande, who sentenced her to spend eternity retrieving all those souls from the Maw for proper judgment that wouldn't be there. So basically, she got an eternity of community service to undo everything she did. That's where Sylvanas is right now, in the story currently. She's actually does feel remorse for what she did. She basically has to try to undo it all in a very literal sense. So the specific ones that we have up here right now, the Soul Seeker is a tool by the jailer that essentially are like the scouts. There is eyes. In fact, there is one in particular called the Eye of the Jailer that is actually Odin's eye that he struck in a deal with Muzala for the power to see into the Shadowlands. The jailer took that all-seeing eye and uses it to be able to see and control anything that's going on inside the Maw. It's very difficult to be able to avoid the jailer's gaze when you are inside the Maw. For that reason. Our other character up here is an attendant. This is actually a denizen of Ouroboros, the circular city in the middle where the Arbiter lives and judges the souls. We're just kind of showing this because we didn't actually have any of these, as far as I can remember, in the core Revendreth set, and so thought it'd be good to showcase because it's something that we mentioned when we talked about the Shadowlands last time, but didn't really have a card to show. And they essentially are the caretakers. They just live to keep Ouroboros clean and functional, and I guess kind of a similar role as the stewards serve in Bastion, but not nearly as cute and cuddly, and just about serving and helping out the Arbiter. Then regarding the Maw, we have the Fallen Kyrian Mawsworn, who make an appearance in the Perjury rogue secret spell, and they are essentially it says right there, Fallen Kyrian, kind of a fallen angel vibe that's going on there, where rather than ferrying souls to the Shadowlands for proper judgment, they're sent out by the jailer to just go down and kidnap people and drag them into the Maw. They're the ones who swooped down and kidnapped Anduin and Thrall and the rest. Let's see. Then oh yes, Life Sentence is a card that we have that just kind of showcases a bit of that stuff with the Maw and Turgas and whatnot. It's very much about imprisonment. Chains are a really big motif down there. The jailer literally did the whole "my bindings become my power," and he really leaned into the chain aesthetic for stuff. You might call him more than two chains. Thank you. I'm glad you laughed at that.
That was brilliant.
Oh, I love it.
Then we have our Shadehound card, which this is actually interesting. This is actually a mount that players could get in World of Warcraft from doing certain content related to the Maw. And they are actually created by binding an animal soul to this set of armor, and they serve as the mounts and beasts from a certain area in the Maw referred to as the kennels. That is basically where it's the factory that they're constructed in to an extent. We also wanted to showcase in I think one of our overall favorite cards of this set, Due Process, which we all like for, I think, slightly different reasons. But I wanted to show this. This is another character that we haven't really seen in the card art yet. This is a Night Fae. They are denizens of Ardenweald, servants of the Winter Queen. They're some of those ones who are all connected with nature. This one in particular looks like one of the main characters named Lady Moonberry, who is an attendant of the Night Fae court and is a really sweet, playful, kind of like the real nice versions of fairies from fairy tales, not the tricksy ones, more just the ones that like playing in the woods and all that. That's kind of what she is, and really nice character to be around. And those are all of the extra cards that we wanted to showcase here. Anyone have any further questions about clarifying elements of the story? Any other cards that come to your mind you'd like us to talk about? I yield the floor.
So Anduin was maybe corrupted for a minute, but now he's back. I was curious if that was going to play a part in the future, or if that's been resolved.
It does play a part in the future because right now he's basically suffering PTSD because he was forced to do all that stuff, but he's like, part of me was enjoying that, and I don't know if my hands are fully clean. I don't know how much of that was the jailer, if I was doing some of that myself. And the thing is, he's kind of supposed to go back and be king of the Alliance. And he's like, I don't know if I can trust myself in that type of leadership right now. So as we're going into a new expansion, which is coming out for World of Warcraft in just about a month at the time of this recording, Dragonflight, Anduin likely isn't going to be having a super major political leadership role for the Alliance. Terrellian actually has kind of been left as the stand-in, the regent lord, you might say, while Anduin was indisposed, due to being kidnapped and all of that. Someone has to help handle the Alliance, kind of actually like the role that Bolvar Fordragon helped run back in those days where Varian had been kidnapped by Lady Prastor, which we talked about way back in the Stormwind expansion and Onyxia's Lair. So yeah, Anduin is back. He's trying to take some time to find himself and figure out if he should stay in a leadership role or not. It's kind of where he is at this current point in the story.
I have a question. So the jailer has that hole in his chest because he was the arbiter and had the anima taken from there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other characters in Warcraft lore that have been the arbiter in the past and reflect that same art, that hole in the chest?
No, he was the original one, and then that new one was made, but then rendered dormant. And so another arbiter had to be created, and that arbiter, the newest one, is actually Pelagos, our priest legendary, who was originally a Kyrian, but ended up becoming the new arbiter in order to give all the souls their fair judgment.
And still is arbiter, I take it?
Well, yes, because he only just got the job at the end of the expansion.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's
So
hopefully
no chest hole.
Nope.
All the anima.
Yep, he never had anything ripped out of him. Nope, the jailer was the only one with a chest hole.
Cool.
No further questions? Let's just check. Is there anything anyone in the chat wants to know?
I didn't think that the chest hole made them particularly holy, but here we are.
No, it's actually the signifying of severely lacking something.
Right.
All right. I guess that wraps up story time for today. Any last things? Time for yield the floor back to Nate now.
Any predictions on what's coming next for Hearthstone? I've heard rumors of Death Knights coming. Do you think that may be a thing, or do you think that this new Dragonflight will have any influence on future sets, or just based on so I will say, with this current Shadowlands storytelling and lore, that's pretty recent in World of Warcraft, where a lot of our older expansions are from a long time ago. And so I'd just be curious with the way that story is going. Do you think that will have an influence on the Hearthstone sets coming out?
I think that this was more of an anomaly, and I think they wanted to latch onto the popularity and unique aesthetic of Revendreth and Castle Nathria and such. It allowed for ideas like, infused mechanics, and there were a lot of cool things they could do with that. I think they didn't choose it, as far as I'm aware, because it was the latest thing in the story. That's not really how Hearthstone rolls. So I doubt, especially since we've already had a very dragon-focused expansion with Descent of Dragons, I doubt that the Dragonflight coming out will have an impact. It's always possible that there could be a character who is being showcased in the expansion, whether new or old, who finds their way into being a legendary, slotted in somehow. But I'm pretty sure they'll probably go back to basics. This is kind of tough because, as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the start of this year, they didn't release the typical prediction art, did they?
I don't think so. I don't remember. To Google.
So most years they've had tiny little, pictures to give hints.
Yeah,
about
that show the
if I had
three
anything to look
hints.
at, I could hazard some guesses. but as far as I'm aware, we were not given any fuel for theories.
I
So
think there was something I have to find.
now I can make guesses based off of the concept of Death Knights, if you like, because there's a few
Well,
potential things that we could have based off of that if it turns out to actually be true.
they also said that this was going to be a larger than normal expansion. So,
Interesting.
yes, which that's kind of what led me to believe would be a new class coming in because they said it's a
Yeah.
larger than normal expansion.
That would be interesting because I would think that when they would introduce new classes, it would be in the same vein as Demon Hunters, where you're having them at the start of a new Hearthstone year.
You would think.
But
Right.
they've only done it once. That's, I guess, not a binding precedent. And if they think that it's a good idea for the meta to introduce a whole new class at the end of Hearthstone year, you guys are more fit to comment on that than I, honestly. But okay, so let's see. The thing is, we've already had a lot of stuff with Northrend. We have obviously the Frozen Throne, which is where the Death Knights initially, came from as hero cards. And we have Dragon's Descent, we mentioned earlier. That's also set in Northrend. So there's a lot of the snowy stuff there. But I can see a couple possibilities depending on how centrally the Death Knight class would be centered. We could focus on areas like the Plague Lands, areas from the Eastern Kingdoms area where the Scourge was initially running around at its most powerful, and still is a place where you can fight some Scourge remnants, just kind of running around without Lich King to control them in the game today. And so places like that, maybe things like Stratholme, or could maybe focus on the areas like Ocarus, which is actually a necropolis like Naxxramas that is the headquarters of the Death Knight class. So if you play a Death Knight, you go through this storyline where you break free of the Lich King's control, and you basically have this huge flame necropolis as your mobile base and such. That's something that they could potentially bring in. But something that I think would be really cool, and this wouldn't be centered so much on Death Knights, but it takes place in Northrend, so it could work out, is, let's see, Uldaman, I believe is there's a lot of Titan facilities that start with Ol, and it's easy to get them mixed up. So just let me have a quick check that I am doing the right one.
Like the keeper of Uldaman, right?
Yes, let's see. Okay, no, this one is Ulduar. So like I said, a lot of them are very similar. It's kind of like how trolls name every capital city they have Zool something, because Zool literally means city in the troll language. So all the Titan cities start with Ul, like there's Uldir,
That explains a lot.
Uldaman. Yeah. And so basically, as she mentioned, the Keepers. This is something that Hearthstone hasn't really focused much on yet, with the exception of that one raw card from the Mogu Cultists. And this is where a lot of those kind of like Norse pantheon ripoff characters that I mentioned before, and there's a lot of them. There's Loken, there's Thorin, there's Freya, and just like a whole bunch that are basically Titan forged versions named after Norse gods, because this is in a snowy area. It's in Northrend, and this is the thing with a big story with Yogg-Saron, and it's actually the origin place of the gnomes and the dwarves and the Tolvir and the Vykrul, which are the ancestors of humans. And basically, there is a lot in this place. And it is in Northrend, and it came out during the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. So while it's not directly connected with Death Knights thematically, it could theoretically be appropriate, and I guess I could say it's something on my wish list, right up there with Pandaria, I suppose, and a Burning Legion expansion. I think those are probably the three things that I most want to see. Honestly, I would but I would personally want for Monk to come out as a new Hearthstone class before Death Knights, because we've already gotten a taste of Death Knights. And it would go hand in hand with the Pandaria expansion, and I would really like that. But those are just some of my thoughts. Again, like not very much to work with here, but if the Death Knights concept is true, and if the size thing is true, then those are some possibilities. We can't really retread the Lich King stuff very much. But we can focus on like the Knights of the Ebon Blade, the Free Will Death Knights, maybe even some conflict they have with other entities, either undead or who fight against undead, like the Scarlet Crusade is a big thing. A lot of them have to deal with the kind of undead hating to a radical degree. Could be some stuff maybe in the Undercity, because that's where all the Forsaken live. But again, we just had Sylvanas as a card here, so I doubt we'll get another Sylvanas so soon. It's like there's different directions we can go in, but that's about all I can theorize with this many clues. We would probably have to call in Murloc Holmes for better deductions.
Do you remember, I think it might have been Ixar who tweeted, "Oh, what would you guys prefer, Monk or Death Knight?" And then he said, "By the way, neither are actually in development." Does that mean it's something else? But just
okay.
It could be that they're already developed.
Okay.
Tinfoil hat. That's all.
Okay. If we go with that, I will say allow for one brief crazy indulgence here. Going back to that area, we were saying that probably the Dragonflight will not have an impact on this. Dragonflight is having a brand new class as a part of the expansion.
Oh.
It's actually a race class combo. It's called an Evoker. You're playing as these humanoid dragon people that were actually created by Nefarian. As an experiment called Drakthir, and it's a new playable race. And they're also the only race that can be this new class called Invoker, which is all about dragon abilities from the different flights. So you have like healing abilities from the red and green dragon flights, or Power of the Earth from the black dragon flight, and Power of Time from the bronze, and so forth. And
sounds awesome.
Sounds really cool.
I am planning on as soon as the pre-patch comes out, I'm going to make a new Warcraft main because I really want to make a black dragon. I just think that you can basically they can change their shapes. They can either be like a dragon person or like just like a human with horns and wings and stuff.
Don't stand in the black dragon fire.
Yes. Let's say I'm addicted to character creators in video games, and so I'm very much looking forward to playing around and creating someone for that. Probably someone who looks maybe a little like Rathian is what I'm thinking, because I really like Rathian. So if this would be like a new class that was not Monk or Death Knight, unless Hearthstone is completely going off the rails and literally creating their own class that has never existed in Warcraft, which I would not put past them. Honestly, it is very much its own thing now, just informed by Warcraft. But it could be that is another option as a class that does not exist in Hearthstone and is not a Death Knight or a Monk.
That'd be fun.
There's that for you, Hydra. You can chew on that.
Very cool. Well, I like it. It'll be interesting to see what they do, especially with Ixar no longer at the helm, although I guess whatever they've done is already done at this point, I imagine. And they're probably putting the final
they make
touches
these things a year or so in advance, right?
Oh yeah, it'll be in like final testing or whatever right now. They can make any final tweaks or whatever it is, but
at the very least, art takes a long time to draw, so they have to commission all the
times, right? That we have these like placeholder artworks or temp cards, the temp card back that we have seen a couple of times recently.
Yeah.
Well, super fun. Goliath, thank you so much for coming back and sharing the stories with us. And I know it's really difficult to take
a sir.
Absolutely. And it's very difficult. I think to take a 10, 20-hour story and condense it into an hour and a half, it's just there's so much to unpack. I mean, you could tell the story of Sylvanas just for hours and hours and hours. So.
I could, if we were to go into every if you read the WoW wiki page on her, it took me at least an hour to get through. That's just summarizing everything.
Very cool. Well,
there's even like a whole just straight up book on Sylvanas too.
That's the newest one that came out that
Yeah.
I read the excerpts from.
Oh, and it's by Christy Golden, so I bet it's incredible.
And I think I'm happy that she's not like done. That they're doing kind of a redemption arc, and I imagine she'll be kind of there with Anduin, like on the shelf for a little while, and they can take her back down when something fun happens.
Yeah,
she
Anduin
seems like
actually
a neat character.
He actually feels kind of a strange comradeship with her in a sense. Like, even though she's the one who did all this stuff to him, because like he actually went to her, like visited her when she's on duty in the Maw, and is like, "So I'm not feeling the greatest right now. What are your thoughts on how to deal with this?" So. Like that there's still a connection there, that at least a shared pain that they could maybe try to help each other with a little bit every so often.
Very cool. All right, friends. Well, I as much as I would like to talk all night, we're at past the 2-hour point, so we should probably start wrapping things up. But I would be remiss if I didn't get a little friendly advice from y'all.
And now, unrelated with Nate Wolf.
This is primarily for Sheep, I think, but Hydra, you may be able to help too. Goliath, I don't know quite so much, but here's my silly question for you. I have not shaved in the better part of 4 years, and all of a sudden find myself shaving like every single day, and in this new role, and my poor face is not used to it. How can I? What do I do to not get like razor burn and have the hair grow back and like get ingrown hairs and stuff? Like, I'm not used to it at all.
What are you using? Is my first question.
Yeah, I like a razor with a a disposable blade, but it's a good one. I mean, it's I don't know, a Gillette or whatever, one of those fancy ones with like 3 blades or however many they're using now.
So you have to get one with 16 blades. And you have to use the shaving cream that like is actually just hair wax. I mean, it's
just get laser hair removal.
I'm afraid I am not suited to answer this question at all. Although I do need to trim up a little bit. My beard grows a little unevenly, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I have a bit of a baby face underneath all this, and I like having a longer beard to make myself feel a bit more professional and grown up, and that I'm someone that I can take seriously. Yeah, no, I have not been clean shaven in I don't know how many years at this point. At least 6 to 8 at this point, I'd say.
Wow.
But I do know you do have to always do a bit of the touch ups, like hair isn't supposed to grow everywhere. And I'd say for me, at least, I use the electric razors. It's what my dad instructed me to use. It's basically just kind of have ones that you have in the lowest setting to just get it down to the basic stubble. And then you have ones that kind of do like a close a rotating blade type of thing. And they have the angle so you can get around the chin and all that stuff. It is handy sometimes if I need to do some touch-ups around the edges or prevent from getting the stereotypical gamer neck beard. I'm afraid that would be my advice, such as I can give, is if the straight razors and the shaving cream is leaving your face a bit sore, maybe try switching to electric and see if it improves anything. It also might just be your face needing to adjust to something that it's not used to.
And that's what it is more than anything else. Because I've randomly had facial hair and not, and whenever you make a change to it, it really is just kind of an adjustment period because your face isn't used to having that thing going on. So whatever it is that you do, it's just continue doing it and be consistent, because your face adapting to what you do is kind of really the biggest thing there.
Now, I've got a question. Did you say sheep would be the best to answer it because sheeps always get shaved?
Sheared.
We call it sheared. Thank you.
In all honesty, I used to use the like Gillette, Mach 3, whatever, like disposable razors in the past, and I used to have issues like that. But about a year and a half ago, I switched to a safety razor. If you know what that is, it's like single. It's like a stainless steel razor. You keep it at all times. That is the one you have. You don't throw it in the garbage, and it's a single blade that's replaceable. It is a little thing little thread at the bottom. You unthread it, you put the new blade in. That thing and an old school, like the brush with a giant puck of the shaving cream. That is what I use. I am an old man. I'm using like something my grandfather would use. The puck that you use and you lather it up and put it on your face and use that safety razor. I haven't had a rash or like ingrown hairs using that thing since. Yeah, since I upgraded. There was a bit of an investment buying the razor in the first place, but then afterwards, it's a single disposable
like
razor blade.
Yeah,
and it's been perfect ever since. Yeah.
So Nate, just clarifying question. Did you say, is this like something related to your new job where you have to shave, or is it just a personal choice for you?
Well, it's just a personal choice, I suppose, but going through like that interview process, the thought was to be more clean cut, for the time being, and
grow back later once you've been there a few months.
Shh. next time there's like I take a week off for vacation, I'll come back, and the problem is it's all growing in like gray. It's very salt and pepper now.
I always enjoyed your salt and pepper beer.
Well, thank you, because it's not going anywhere. It's so weird because I'll shave first thing in the morning, and by the end of the day, it's like sandpaper. But it's like, okay, I can go a day without shaving. I don't have to shave every single day, but by the end of day 2, it's like super noticeable. And so it's somewhere in between, like somewhere on that second day. And so I'm like trying to debate, do I shave every day? Do I shave every other day? Do I not shave on the weekend? Like, I never enjoyed it. And that's how I grew the beard in the first place, was like, forget this, I'm not doing it. And then it just grew. But no, I am going to be in a place that's significantly more conservative than I'm in right now. That's vague enough for you all, but so I'll keep it clean shave for a while at least, and
check out the safety razor.
Yeah, man, I'll check it out. Well, you heard it here, folks. Wiser words were never spoken, and you heard that on
Born to be Wild.